All right, let's start our Tuesday, October 14th Policies Priorities Committee meeting at 5 p.m. and 8 seconds. All right, so approval of the agenda, please. Let's see, let's go with this green one here. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Chair Hoffman, that the October 14th, 2025 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Noxana. And I guess that's a vote. All in favor? Well, there's nobody to oppose. We have a unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Norbury. All right. Adoption of the minutes. September 8th, 2025, Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Any comments from council? Recommendation? Oh yeah, that's on this page. Councillor Noxana, please.
That the September 8th, 2025 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be approved as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Norbury, all in favor? Unanimous. Staff, any issues with the minute meetings? Thank you. All right, we are starting with a presentation today. Urban Systems, Chad Carlstorm and Jeryn Mackey. I'm sorry if I mispronounced them. Please come to the delegation table. And that's I'll get the right button sooner or later. There we go. Thank you. All right, thanks for coming out. And I know I've been looking forward to what you have to say, so give her.
Yeah, well, thank you. And likewise, we're looking forward to sharing the results of our findings throughout this past year. To advance the slides? We just give you a nod? Okay, sure. Sorry, had to get through some, yeah, thanks. So maybe I'll introduce myself. I'm Chad Carlstorm. I'm a professional engineer with Urban Systems. I've had the privilege of supporting the district on various projects throughout the last dozen years. Along with our broader team at Urban Systems of land economists, landscape architects such as Jeryn, housing specialists, we've been able to bring forward our professional expertise and develop this report, which is currently in draft, and we'll share the results of it with you today.
And yeah, thanks everyone. I'm Jeryn Mackey, a landscape architect with Urban Systems, as Chad mentioned. I've been working with the District of Tumbler Ridge since I started at Urban, and looking forward to sharing, the draft findings, the residential development plan. Move to the next slide. Thank you. So, the district undertook this plan in response to existing housing challenges in the district, as well as residents' request for more diverse housing options. And from the outset, there were a few primary objectives with the plan, beginning with establishing a strategic framework for responsible and sustainable residential growth, evaluating the potential of some land parcels previously identified by the district for residential development, as well as providing strategies that consider environmental, social, and economic factors, all with the goal of addressing current and future housing needs, as well as attracting and supporting community members, businesses, and visitors. Go next slide. There were several stages to this project, beginning with updates to the district's 2021 Housing Needs Report, followed by engagement. There was a community partner and interest holder workshop that many of you were present at, followed by a community-wide survey to help identify values and priorities to guide the direction of the project. These values and priorities were then used to help evaluate those identified land parcels, along with some on-site inventory and analysis of the physical opportunities and constraints. And then finally, prepared some development concepts as well as cost estimates for the financial implications of development. Next slide, please. So I'll go over this very briefly, as the Housing Needs Report has been previously presented, but some of the key findings in the report were that based on the provincial calculations and projected growth, Tumbler Ridge will need approximately 395 new housing units by 2041, and that 109 of those would be required within the next 5 years. And the updated report and those numbers helped inform the other aspects of the residential development plan scope as we moved through it. Next.
So the community engagement that was done as part of this project happened in two parts. The first part was the key partner workshop that happened in December 2024, which many of you were able to join and be a part of. And so in this workshop, we informed community leaders about the project and its context. We learned from them about what, the values and priorities that we should consider when undertaking any type of residential development in Tumbler Ridge. Gain different perspectives on what the barriers and opportunities are when it comes to housing development in Tumbler Ridge. We discussed options on who is responsible for residential development. The public survey launched in 2025, in February 2025. And with that, we asked very similar questions, but this was in a survey response style. The survey had 33 questions, which for a community survey is a lot of questions to ask. And, but I gotta give a lot of credit to the people of Tumbler Ridge who responded. An outstanding 354 responses for a community of Tumbler Ridge this size. This indicates a couple things to us. One is that it's a topic that's very important to the community members. Also, your staff here did an excellent job on getting the word out and promoting the community survey, which helped gain these responses. And I would also say that the total number of responses received should also give you confidence, as it gave us confidence in what these values were within the community and some of these barriers and aspirations when it comes to residential development in Tumbler Ridge. Next slide. So when we went out to the key partner workshop and the public survey, the responses that we received, I'll touch on some of the highlights of them. In our report, we have a full comprehensive summary of all the questions and responses, but for the purposes of this presentation, just condense it down to a few select ones. I do want to ask, we intended to ask at the very onset, we understand your procedure is typical 15 minutes for a presentation. Based on the content of this report, if we could have an extra 5 to 10 minutes, we could go through it in a slower pace and maybe a bit more in depth. If you'd like us to keep to the 15 minutes, we'll respect that too.
Usually we wait for that 15 minutes to come up, but I think it appropriate for your pacing that we can ask the question now. I'll put it in this form. I'll move that we could add an extra up to 10 minutes for the delegation, so that would be a total of 25 minutes available to them. Second from Councillor Noxana, thank you. And let's, just if we need a discussion, fair enough. Would anybody like to discuss? Then we'll call the question. All in favor? And that's unanimous, so you have your 25 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
So much.
Yes. So to the community visions and values that we uncovered through these engagement responses, up at the top, very important for the community that any future subdivision design is in accordance with fire smart practices, that there's a resilience to that design and layout of subdivision, that it's resistant to wildfires. Noting that in 2023, very risky situation for the town of Tumbler Ridge. Next up was access to green space and preservation of natures. When we look at the design intent of Tumbler Ridge, you see some patterns emerge, and that was very intentional in the original town concepts that were carried forward. It's apparent that they've learned to love and cherish these assets in the community, so any future design of subdivisions or residential development should carry through some of these similar architectural languages. Other things that rose to the top: cost, accessibility to the community, things are still quiet and safe. And then lower towards the bottom, we saw things sustainable design and servicing, rural identity and design and diversity in some options there. I would also say that there was very strong alignment between the responses that we heard at the Key Partner Workshop and with the community survey results.
I think among the top five, it was only the fifth one that was different between the two. At the workshop, circulation and connectivity was a bit higher versus the quiet, which you see on the community survey responses.
Yeah, next slide. Yeah, within the community survey too, we also explored a topic around willingness to pay. So understanding that when it comes to residential homes, what people's thresholds might be to pay for a residential home. And what you see here is maximum amounts converging between 200 to 300,000 for most respondents. Some respondents going up towards $500,000, a few beyond that. I think that when you compare it to the average assessed home price in Tumbler Ridge, this is likely where you get that range of where people's willingness to pay lies. In 2025, the typical assessed value in Tumbler Ridge was $203,000. The previous year, $180,000. Compared to the Peace River Regional District and all its member municipalities, Tumbler Ridge saw the greatest increase between 2024 and 2025 in average assessed values. So it is going up in Tumbler Ridge, but generally still, compared to other communities, still quite affordable. So we get into a bit of a relative market value. Average single-family detached home prices in Tumbler Ridge, so getting a little bit more specific, likely falling within the $285,000 to $320,000 range. Next slide. So when we consider what construction costs are, present-day construction costs to add new homes, we also explored that in the report. And we can look to manufactured homes. So we received quotes from 3 different manufacturing home companies to try and get a comparable home around 1,500 square feet. So there's a cost to manufacture the home, including the shipping to the site. There's a cost for the foundation, for them to put the home on the site, giving that total construction cost. Excluded from these costs, though, are things like driveways, landscaping, some restoration, decks or patios, fences. So when one considers what that total overall construction value would be beyond the manufactured home company supplying that cost, it would be higher. We can also look to other markets in the Peace region for some example new home builds. So at the time, you can go on to Realtor, extract some prices, and as time goes on, things do fluctuate. But you can look to Dawson Creek and Fort St. John as some communities that have had some new home builds in recent years. And you can see a home constructed in Dawson Creek in 2023 for about around that 1,500 square foot size. Listed price $439,000. Fort St. John, 2 examples, one home from 2024 and 2025. So those are creeping up around the $500,000 and above towards $600,000. I would just say that construction costs in general, especially over the past 5 years since COVID, they've been increasing. Labor costs are increasing, material costs are increasing. So even though in Tumbler Ridge, an average home price may be low, the new home construction cost, whether it occurs in Fort St. John, Dawson Creek, or Tumbler Ridge, your inputs of labor and materials are all the same, which causes for some challenging situations, which we'll speak about later on into the report. Also within the community survey, we asked people their perceptions. You know, what are barriers to development, real or perceived? You know, there were two overwhelming responses. High construction costs. Respondents were able to identify, yeah, that's a barrier. Also, one that came out was fear of market volatility and loss of investment. You know, this is a nod to Tumbler Ridge's history, and you know, these are big investments when we talk about residential development for people to make, and yeah, that's a part of Tumbler Ridge's identity that can sometimes be tricky. Other barriers to development that people were able to self-identify: availability or access to tradespeople, so that home building economy. And then following behind that, limited access to financing for developers or buyers, rural remote location, and perhaps lack of infrastructure. And then the final community survey question that I just wanted to highlight in our presentation to you today was, we asked people, whose responsibility is it for housing? And perhaps not surprising to you as council, people identified local government at 72%. You know, perhaps some fingers being directed your way that, yeah, the District of Tumbler Ridge is responsible, that they should do more. You know, other things that's interesting to note, yes, the provincial government, whose housing it is, the responsibility in some shared part, 48%. What was interesting to see that industry came in at 33%. And I bring that up because Tumbler Ridge does have a history of industry being part of the housing stock and creation during the development of Tumbler Ridge. But that has shifted over time in public perception, and yeah, interesting to note. The individual and private sector both came in at 41% as those who people felt were responsible for housing. I will also say that it's no surprise, you hear it in the news often, that housing is an issue that's experienced all across Canada, and you are seeing the provincial government and the federal government start to make announcements, you know, almost on a monthly basis about different programs or starts. You know, most recently, the federal government announced a $13 billion Build Canada Homes fund just to help out the housing situation all across Canada. So when it comes to whose responsibility it is for housing, I would say that things are quite dynamic. Many levels of government can recognize that housing is a challenge all across Canada, and so you are seeing different levels of intervention by different levels of government. Getting more into the structure of the report, we wanted to present the report in a way that is both analytical but also very readable, understanding that this report will likely be have a high interest by the community. And so we tried to break down the process for adding more homes for people into 3 steps. One is to acquire the land. Step 2 is to subdivide and service parcels. And then step 3 is to build the homes. And so within our analysis, we took it step by step as well. Under acquiring land, the district does own quite a bit of land, and even for the past 2 decades, has been advertising land on the market for sale at its appraised value. Some of the land is serviced, some of it is not. Yeah, at the time of our preparation of the report, there were 13 parcels of land for sale that the district has owned. And within the past 5 years, the district acquired some land from provincial crown land through a process that took 4 years. This is land at the Saddle Club. And so, yeah, there has been some recent land transactions. that have been happening in Tumbler Ridge towards that. In our analysis, having the acquisition of land that hasn't been a barrier for development, especially when that land or parts of it has been advertised for public sale. Step 2, subdivide and service parcels. So what's interesting in Tumbler Ridge, there are some privately held parcels that are already subdivided and serviced, ready to go to build homes on. Publicly listed, one was for $31,000. The district has 6 parcels zoned, subdivided and serviced, ready to go for residential development, ranging from $10,000 to $34,500 per parcel. So there's a number of options that exist on the market today for subdivided and serviced parcels. With few land transactions and home builds on those opportunities, in our analysis, again, that's not a great barrier that exists out there. I will add some context too, because through the process, one of the things that was explored was, well, what if the district acquired land and then subdivided and developed the land and then posted it onto the market for sale, which is an option that you do have. Other municipalities do it. In 2020, your nearby neighbors, the District of Taylor, undertook a 50-lot subdivision called Jarvis Crescent. But unfortunately for them, after the construction of it, not a single service lot has been sold. And that's listed for $85,000 per lot. In our calculations going back, so those are 2020 dollars. If that same subdivision were to be constructed today, we're estimating that based on all your input and construction costs, you're probably looking at around $130,000 per lot. Construction costs have gone up considerably. So given that there's some lots on the market for around $30,000, it'd be tough to compete with the present day construction costs. So then that gets us to the third step around building homes and considering, what are the barriers that exist to building homes? And that seems to be where most of the challenges occur. As I presented earlier, the cost to build homes are expensive, even modular homes, especially relative to what the average home costs are in Tumbler Ridge. And so towards some of those community survey perceptions, there's fear of volatility that are real and that do exist. And, those could be some barriers towards new home construction. And again, these are some highlights of the report, but just wanted to share those that start to build some context and understanding towards adding more homes in Tumbler Ridge.
Yeah, and so as we talked about earlier, a big part of this scope was evaluating 3 parcels previously selected by the district that had the potential for future residential development. Each of these locations are on district-owned land that is not currently subdivided or serviced. And as part of this, we completed a physical site inventory of the existing features of all of them, as well as an analysis of opportunities and constraints. And we also asked community members through the survey about their thoughts on each of the 3 sites. And I'll talk a little bit about those on the following slides. Next slide, please. So the first site was the Saddle Club. It's 52 acres west of the existing Saddle Club and Highway 52. And the district's vision for this site is to accommodate predominantly single-family development on larger lots. And some of the advantages with this would be providing a different neighborhood type in a rural location and allowing space for larger lots that we had heard throughout engagement were something that folks were looking for. Some of the disadvantages associated with that are some uncertainty about the level of service that would be desired or required. So further investigation would be needed on the site to determine if on-site septage or wells would be a possibility, or if it would have to be cisterns or things like that. There's also the need to meet minimum standards for roads and emergency access, and even a basic gravel road has construction costs associated with it. There's also the other piece that with larger lots, that cost to subdivide and develop is shared among fewer properties, so the cost per lot does go up. And in the cost estimates, that cost came in higher than what people were indicating as their willingness to pay. So next slide, we have the Upper Bench site. So 42 acres south of Mackenzie Way and west of Highway 52. Site has a lot of well-used trails, some mature and young forests throughout. And the vision for this one, the district's vision is primarily single-family homes with a mix of other residential configurations. This site, a few of the advantages include the opportunity to provide a little bit larger single-family lots that could accommodate things such as attached or detached garages, which we also heard throughout the engagement were something people were really looking for. It's pretty straightforward on this site to extend servicing and roads from the south. There wouldn't be any major infrastructure upgrades anticipated, as well as development could be phased based on its proximity to existing neighborhoods. And it's got all of that existing green space and trails. Some of the disadvantages that we looked at included the potential impact to that existing trail network and needing to design around that, as well as some concerns noted about if it got too close to the Highway 52 hillside. And again, that with larger lots, you see a larger cost per lot. And then on the next slide, we have the final site that we looked at, which is the 46-acre wood. And the vision for this area was residential development of varying densities throughout. And the adjacent parcel, there are some really cool opportunities that could include designing in creative ways to accommodate a variety of residential options in partnership with the adjacent landowner. And it's also a very flat property with limited elevation change, which is nice for development. But some of the disadvantages that come with that are that currently there are no set plans for that adjacent parcel. And development would require planning on a much larger scale because collector roads and intersection upgrades would need to be a part of that, especially if it was just the district side being developed. And yeah, that comes along with the anticipated scale would also include increased infrastructure costs. Let's go to the next one. So based on those site analyses, as well as the project values and priorities, we worked to advance the Upper Bench site as future with a development concept. And this was for a number of reasons, including its proximity to existing utilities, services, and amenities, the relatively flat grade throughout, as well as the connection opportunities to that existing trail network. There's also, in the report, there's also a cost estimate associated with this to help inform future planning based on the assumption that development could be phased starting with the parcels in the southern portion. And looking at the concept, the lots shown in yellow would be for single detached from just under 0.1 to just over 0.1 hectares in size. So a bit of a larger lot, as we were talking about, that could accommodate garages and things like that. Some orange. The orange parcels are suggested locations for a bit higher density, such as duplexes or triplexes. And then the pinkish red color that you can see up at the north side is opportunities for multi-family, such as a multiplex or a townhouse. And the design principles that we focused on in the preparation of this concept included maintaining and enhancing site access, both from an inclusivity and accessibility perspective, but also from an emergency access and egress, knowing that that was such an important piece of the community engagement. We also focused on preserving and prioritizing existing green space as well as including dedicated park space throughout. You can see sort of the darker green channels going through the middle. That's an existing drainage path that we had discussed at the community workshop a while ago, but throughout this concept planning process, we really worked to preserve existing patterns and natural features as much as possible. And finally, we also really wanted to maintain the road, path, and lot character of other parts of the district and continue that on with this area and include lots for various types of housing, as I mentioned.
Sorry to interrupt you. I need a motion to continue if we want, we're past the 25-minute mark right now. We did a 10-minute extension. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Chair Hoffman. I'll motion to extend the delegation.
Seconder, Councillor Dussault. Discussion? Okay, all in favor? All right. Please continue.
Yes,
Next
thank
slide.
you.
Yes, thank you for your extra time. We're now into the recommendations part of the report, just summarizing those. I'll start off with the development and home building promotion. Some of this is evident you guys are already doing as part of a local government and through your economic development staff. But some recommendations include consider creating and promoting, perhaps in a series of brochures, just that home building process to the community, perhaps reducing some of the confusion around like the process to build a home, simplifying, making people more comfortable with that process, especially acknowledging that there hasn't been a lot of home development in recent years in Tumbler Ridge. You can promote the changes that the district has made in your recent zoning bylaw that permits the use of manufactured homes. Again, a way to communicate that you've made some steps to reduce the barriers, which may entice some interest. For existing subdivided and service parcels, such as those in the upper bench, promote those, that there's a market demand for housing, as demonstrated in this report and the housing needs report. So, by demonstrating the demand, maybe that entices that a home builder to start operation in Tumbler Ridge. The information within this report can be used as market research. Continue creating and promoting land sale marketing packages for district-owned land. Again, some of these things you are already doing. Some of these things you can continue to do or build on. Next slide. Under policies and procedures, so working with the district staff, they did receive a legal opinion on the 2023 moratorium in the upper bench, restricting some type of or home development on existing parcels. The recommendation is to remove that moratorium, and we presented some options in the report supported by the district's legal counsel as alternative options on what to do instead of the moratorium. Also to undertake a comprehensive review of the district's land sale policy and lot expansion policy, something that we understand staff is already engaged in working on. Consider advocating to grant municipal council's authority to add vacant land property tax. About 4 years ago at UBCM, the District of Lillooet passed a motion supporting that, which then, if supported or granted the powers through the province, would allow vacant properties to be taxed at a different rate as set out by local governments. And then another recommendation is just remain open to supporting alternative housing models that do come up. Housing in Canada, it is a very dynamic atmosphere these days, and so some communities are seeing success in different models of housing developments. Under adding more homes for people, When it comes to acquiring land, we recommend that just ensure that all additional land acquisitions are fully analyzed for suitability of future needs and that decisions are fully informed. When it comes to subdividing and servicing parcels, I'll touch on those 3 sites specifically. And under building homes, remain open to exploring partnerships with provincial agencies such as BC Housing and nonprofit organizations and industry partners. We've shared 3 positive examples of housing developments that have happened within the Peace region through these partnerships with nonprofit, BC Housing, and industry partners. So yeah, if you can get these parties working together, there are successes that can come about. Remain curious and connected to funding programs. Again, housing is a very dynamic state, and yeah, funding announcements are coming out yeah, quite regularly. So yeah, remain curious and connected to those. And then finally, just remain in contact with BC Housing, which we understand that staff and council are actively. In fact, ahead of this, we took a drive through Chamberlain Place just to get our eyes on it, see the state of things. So to replace housing that was demolished by BC Housing. And then finally, getting into the recommendations for the 3 potential sites that Jeryn had provided a summary of the site analyses on. So for the Saddle Club, consider creating a request for expressions of interest for the entire parcel of land as a package and try and promote that to attract developers for that. We also recommend to update the district subdivision and development servicing bylaw for minimum standards when it comes to rural residential properties. What we heard throughout this process is perhaps there's a different desire to allow a different minimum level of service when it comes to rural residential, but as your bylaw currently sits, there are different parameters from what we had heard. So, you know, perhaps that's its own investigation. And then to reevaluate the option for the district to act as a developer of the land if that request for expressions of interest is unsuccessful or if market patterns change. And then for the 2 remaining sites that we talked about, again, for the Upper Bench site, you could compile that into a request for expressions of interest, trying to attract a potential private developer. So building on the concept plan that we've created and some cost estimates out there, that will help set the vision and guide the development of the land, perhaps reducing some of those barriers for a private developer. And then annually reevaluate the market conditions and reanalyze depending on if there's interest from the private development community or not. And then finally for 46 Acre Wood, just remain in contact with the owner of the parcel to the west of it as land transfers occur. And yeah, to work collaboratively with there over what the future of that land could become. And with that, there's our summary of our report to date. Thank you for being generous with your time and allowing us additional time to review this content with you. And we're open for any questions.
Thank you both. I think the decided 2 motions to keep it going, so I think council was very much interested in what you had to say. And I guess it's our turn. So Councilor Norbury, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Hoffman. Thank you both for coming in. Time flew by. I didn't think we needed another motion. Like we were within time. It's only 15 minutes. So I appreciate all the information that you presented to us. Some things really popped out at me. First thing that you mentioned was 30% of Tumbler Ridge are renters and 70% homes are owned by residents. Is that sort of normal ratio, do you find, or are we on par? Is that even something that's even your experience?
Yeah, that'd be tough for me to answer on the spot, but I could get back to you with comparative values in other communities. Yeah.
Thank you for that. You know, in hearing that we had 354 responses, well over 10%, which is, you know, almost unheard of for surveys in Tumbler Ridge is quite good. People are definitely passionate about that. And, you know, noticing the willingness to pay, people want to pay $300,000, but the cost to develop means that we owe them $30,000 to $60,000 if we want them to build in Tumbler Ridge. So that kind of creates a bit of a challenge for us moving forward. In some of my experiences with housing workshops and presentations, I know there are prefabricated design plans available online on some websites out there that are helpful for developers or people to pick up and go. Because one of the challenges is that with the costs of building, land acquisition, et cetera, they wanted to make it easier, and that's available for them. So I look forward to hearing about your moratorium on options, because I know like the history behind that was we had issues with people building in that area, creating water flow that has damaged the roads and made it unpassable in wintertime, like a lot of water buildup. So I know that's why we put the moratorium there, was an immediate, like, we have to stop this from happening because there's a lot of underground aquifers there. So, yeah, so I look forward to hearing from that. Beyond that, thanks for coming in.
Councillor Julick.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. It's a really good report, answers a lot of questions if I have to go back and take a peek at them. I really appreciate the encouragement to sell the lots that are available in town right now, because there are a lot out there and people just aren't necessarily aware because there's no for sale signs on there and stuff. And I don't know that I've ever thought of that as being an option, that we just encourage folks that have land to, you know, hello, we still have, you know, people wanting to build here and stuff. I actually saw one on one of those bid sites or something. I popped up on my social media that it gotten sold. So I was pleasantly surprised by some of the information. I really would like to say kudos to staff for getting that survey out there, because that's what you guys are saying was part of the response was due to that, and that's usually a bit of a hurdle, right, when you do surveys and stuff. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that many, and I really appreciate the upper bench suggestions there, like just because I'm a visual person and I can't visualize in my head, so this I can look at and go, oh, okay, I can understand that. So appreciated the different versions of housing there. So yeah, just thanks so much for all the work you guys have put into this, and for the presentation of the report. It was great.
Thanks for that. Okay, well, since I don't see any other dashing lights, I will take a few questions myself. Community survey willingness to pay. Was there any specification of for what? Because when you're getting this huge chunk right around what the assessed values are and a few outliers saying over $500,000, are we assuming new when people were talking about that?
Yes, that's correct.
So people that own $200,000 houses are willing to pay $200,000 for a new construction? Okay, I could see where the disconnect is. All right, thank you for that. I also can't get past your barriers to development. When we have high construction costs and fear of market volatility, I don't know who are convincing as an individual to invest in a house here. It's just too big of a number gap between what the local housing is and what not. So as far as talking about developers coming, I don't know what developer I'm going to convince to build multiple units with including sanitation, water, roads, and everything along that goes with it on a per lot basis. So I can wait for the report. I know you have much more detailed information than that, but is it coming down to you looking at either BC Housing or us locally looking at development if we want anything in the short term?
Yeah, so throughout this report and even prior, we've been in contact with some home builders and developers, and as one can imagine, it's often risk-based decisions when they're putting their money on the line, and so they're more likely to go to places that have a higher confidence that they're going to sell those lots and sell those homes quite quickly. When it comes to single-family residential homes, yeah, those can be a barrier. Some of the more promising housing prospects that we see for Tumbler Ridge is, yes, partnering for higher density forms of housing developments. perhaps with BC Housing or other nonprofits. When it comes to housing funding that are available, there are few programs out there that support single-family homes, but a lot more that are focused on higher density housing solutions.
Okay, so I'll wait for it. I'm not expecting you to remember every number you had in there, but was there similar construction costs for apartment versus high-density townhouse versus low-density townhouse in the report that we'll be getting?
No, we didn't get
Okay.
into that detail, no.
No, fair enough. I was just, I saw it here and I thought it was a good number to add, so I was wondering if equivalents were coming up. All right, that's the main I wanted. Any other questions from council? Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time, and it was good to see both your faces in person. I very much appreciate that as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Safe travels home.
Okay. All right. Well, we don't have too heavy of an agenda, so let's go to 6.1, Hometown Takeover Canada application. October 14th report from the Director of Economic and Community Development regarding Hometown Takeover Canada application. Recommendation, please. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Chair Hoffman, that council receives this report for information.
Seconder. Councilor Dussault. And all in favor? Discussion, thank you. Let's go with discussion. Councilor Julich.
I'm just looking at this, and it's just to inform, sorry, now I'm reading the rest of it, I'm fine to go with the information then.
No worries. All right, let's go with all in favor now. All right, unanimous. Councilor Norbury, lead us off.
That was for adjournment?
Oh, you're just taking the information, fair enough. Nobody has anything to.
Information means we're not talking about it.
That's correct, thank you, sir, appreciate it. All right, so Councilor Norbury likes doing adjournment, so let's give him the floor for that one.
Thank you, Chair, that the October 14th, 2025 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting be adjourned.
Seconder, I think we need that, so Councilor Noxana, all in favor? We're adjourned.